Yo, what's up, y'all? We out here once again, Lake Michigan, out here showing up in the summer. If you could say that, it's the last day of August. It's a sad day because it means fall is here. And if fall is here, then that's basically winter. About the same thing in Michigan, you know what I'm saying? But we out here chilling, enjoying the sun and the breeze before we're unable to do this because high odds the next time I'm out here, the lake will be frozen. But wanted to get some devotional time out here. And before doing that, I actually want to talk about a story I read. Might have been a week or so ago at this point. I haven't been as consistent as I wanted to be, but I read this and I was like, yo, I have to talk about this. So it's in Genesis. Part of my flow here recently has been just reading through the book of Genesis. I'm not doing like a Bible reading plan because I don't like being on that kind of schedule with it. I just want to be able to read, observe, and reflect. I don't want to just read to read, and I would recommend you take that approach as well when it comes to the Bible. But yeah, so keep that in mind. But this story here is in Genesis chapter 34. I'm going to kind of summarize it for you. It's a wild story. And then I'll come back and read something that I don't think I saw before when I read this story or heard this story. And it's just something that I didn't consider, but I think it has real, decent, and poignant ramifications for us and how we engage in life. So the title of this section is called the Dinah incident or Dinah incident. And Jacob had 12 sons and he had one daughter, and his daughter was named Dinah. Now, it's interesting. I can only imagine what it'd be like. You got one girl growing up in the house. You got mom around. You got these other maid servants, whatever. But it's you and 12 brothers. I'm not saying that's easy, and it doesn't excuse what happens here. But for some reason, verse 34:1 starts with this. Now, Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had born to Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. It almost seems like a throwaway verse. I guess just what happened. But again, I wonder if it was based in some kind of loneliness, whatever she was feeling, whatever she was thinking. I don't know what it was like. We hear that the brothers were out dealing with the flock all the time, so maybe she was at home by herself. I have no idea what the situation was like for her, but whatever it was, at some point she decides to go out and see the daughters of the land. And she's in like, not enemy territory, but just away from home. And I don't know if she goes out here by herself. I don't know if she goes with some other people. I have no idea. But this dude, Shechem, sees her and he's like, yo, man, I'm trying to get at this. It's a 2025 version. And he ends up, now, context like back then, stuff like, well, let me say this first. I don't think when it comes to treating women like objects or like, oh, I want that, I'm gonna go get that at any cost. I don't think that's right. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it seems like it was more common for people in older generations and societies to do that. Maybe it was less frowned upon. But with that said, it does happen a lot today. And it's still as frowned upon as it should be, because that's a very evil thing to do, to take somebody without their consent and do things to them and try to act like you're doing something with somebody. It doesn't work that way. But Shechem, this dude, in all of his horniness or whatever, verse 2 says that he saw her, he took her, and he laid with her, and he violated her. So, like, again, you picture what's going on here and you read through the verse and it's like, okay, that's what happened. But nah, man, we got stuff like that that happens today, and it's bad and never ends well. What's interesting about this is where the story goes, right? Because obviously the lust is a factor. The Bible even says that his soul was like super attracted to her, even if she didn't have a chance to like speak for herself. It says like his soul was strongly attracted to Dinah. He loved the young woman and spoke kindly to the young woman. But that kind of love and that kind of speaking kindly didn't stop him from violating her, which again is very messed up. But as you can imagine, a situation like this cannot end well. So he goes to his father, Hamor, and he says, hey, we need to make this official. Can you talk to her family and try to get her as a wife? Which again, it sounds really bad. Like that's how people went down out here, man. Not good. And the father's like, okay. So he ends up ultimately speaking to Jacob and trying to figure out what's going on. Jacob hears about what's going on as well. And the sons, they're out tending to the sheep, the livestock, they come back in and they are pissed. Jacob almost waits. It says that he waits for the boys to come back before actually dealing with this guy Hamor. But he wasn't about that. The sons weren't about that. And let's see, verse 7. Yeah, super disgraceful thing in Israel by doing this, a thing which ought not to be done. So even back then in the standards, like they acknowledged it's not supposed to be this way. So that's why I said from before, it might have seemed like a more normal thing back then to treat women like this, but it's never been acceptable. And it certainly hasn't been a part of God's plan for what relationships should look like. But Hamor, he tries to speak up for his son and say, hey, like he really likes her. He's really feeling her. What can we do? How can we make this thing match, even though we're different? How do we put this all together? He's like, here's a proposition. Let's be friends, let's marry with y'all and y'all can marry with us and we'll be all good. So Shechem, in his lust, as we often see, there's so many lessons here from this thing, man. Shechem in his lust is like, hey man, whatever I need to do, I'll do it. Like, yo, this dude in heat out here. He's just like, whatever it takes, he's gonna do it. And the sons of Jacob in verse 13, they speak deceitfully because of what he did. They're like, oh, you're willing to do anything? We got you. And so in verse 14, they said to them, the brothers said to Shechem and Hamor, we cannot do this thing to give our sister to one who is uncircumcised, for that would be a reproach to us. They're saying that already knowing that the fact that she was violated was a reproach. So they're setting it up. But on this condition, we will consent to you if you will become as we are. If every male of you is circumcised, then we will give our daughters to you, and we'll take your daughters to us, and we will dwell with you, and we will become one people. He said, if not, then it's not going down. Now, again, Shechem in his lust and delusion is like, oh yeah. Light work. Let's go. So his father, and all the men of their town end up doing this thing, right? And I don't know what the health practices were like back in the day. I don't know what kind of anesthesia they had back then. I don't know what kind of pain meds they had back then. But as you can imagine, a process like circumcision in however many centuries BC world is not going to be 1, easy, 2, pleasant, or 3, pain-free, as you can imagine. And you just pray there's no accidents with whatever kind of knives or blades they're using back then. Shoot. But anyway, they go through with it and they're rocked. In verse, what was it? verse 24. And there's a whole lot of deceit going back here, because even in the verses between 15 and 24, it says, it does shout out Shechem for being decent, even though he just violated somebody. But at least he intended to do, like, he intended to hold up his end of the bargain to marry Dinah. But the father was like, oh, if we can get in with these people, we see they got nice flocks, they got all nice livestock and land. We'll get in with them and then we'll just take all their stuff. It's wild times. The level of deceit upon deceit that's going on here. So anyways, because of this, they all do it. They all end up rocked. And in verse 25, it says that they were in pain. So they were in pain for days here, but it was on the third day that Levi and Simeon and Levi, they came to the town and they killed every dude up in there, like all of them in the whole town. And that to me is absolutely crazy. They killed Hamor and Shechem. They took Dinah and they went out. They went back home. And then on the flip side, where Hamor was trying to say, hey, let's take all of their stuff, the brothers ransacked their city and took all their stuff. So it was wild, man. And at the end of the chapter, Jacob's like, yo, what did you do? You're making me obnoxious to these people out here. You're making things difficult and hard for me. And the brothers reply, hey, man, that's our sister. You saw what he did to her. We're not letting that go unpunished, man. We had to handle that. They deserve that. Whether they did or not, it's not for me to decide, but that's how they felt in the moment, and that's how they responded. Now, one, that's a crazy story. And after that, chapter 35 goes right to Bethel, into the next piece of, the next part of the journey. But there is a quote. This is the Remnant Study Bible, and it has a piece in here that I'm sure will raise questions and hopefully a good discussion. But it says that the one daughter, Dinah, of Jacob's household had been brought to shame and sorrow. 2 brothers were involved in the guilt of murder. A whole city had been given to ruin and slaughter in retaliation for the lawless deed of one rash youth, that being Shechem. The beginning that led to results so terrible was the act of Jacob's daughter, who went out to see the daughters of the land, thus venturing into association with the ungodly. Now, as you can imagine, that's perplexing on a number of points, right? Because it almost sounds like Dinah is being blamed for everything that happened here. And I wrestle with that, I'm not really sure how to feel about that. And I think it's tough because, like I said in the beginning of this video, there's a lot of context that is missing. We don't have a lot at all. There isn't much said about Dinah. We hear that she's born. We hear that she's the daughter of Leah, that she was born to Jacob, and that she went out to see the daughters of the land. We don't know any of the context here. So I do throw out that there is a potential benefit of the doubt that needs to be given on that hand for a statement this strong to be said. So, yeah, I'll say that either way, I could see it to where it's like, sure, that was the one action that created the butterfly effect of what ultimately happened with that town and with the deaths of Hamor and Shechem. But I think because it's a hard one to wrestle with in terms of placing all the blame on somebody like that, I want to look at it from more of a practical sense. Regardless of what we think about Dinah and whether she deserves the responsibility and the blame for what happened here in this story, I think the underlying principle is something that is accurate and something that we need to pay attention to. And it's that things that we do have consequences. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. She was violated by someone, and her brothers violated that someone in an exponential, a repeat and expansion of the violation. Now, I say the principle stands because there are a lot of things that we do in our day-to-day experience that we do not consider to be evil or the start of something terrible or bad in any regard. There are things that we view ourselves as doing as innocent, not bothering anyone, it's not going to impact anyone, and yet they could. Never mind what it even does to us at the end of it. How many times do we set ourselves up for something unpleasant, but in the moment it feels like we're just chilling or just enjoying something? Would we think harder on the things we do that seem and feel innocent if we realize that the ramifications could be a lot bigger and far spreading than we think? Look into your past. How many things did you do thinking it would come out a certain way, and it ended up being complete opposite, negative, whatever? Sure, there are things on the opposite side where you do something small, you don't expect it to go anywhere, and it turns into something great. So those do happen as well. But how many times have you, in your own experience, you think back and you realize, man, yeah, I did that thinking it was this, and it turned out to be something completely different. And there's that word regret. Like, so many people have regrets, and so many more people don't acknowledge that they regret anything. But the point of that word is it's an indication of a moment where a choice was made or something happened that you have to consider doing differently because of the outcome. It's called a regret because in that moment, that choice had a perceived outcome, and yet the actual outcome was different. That's why regret is what it is. And if you have moments that you think about that could fall in that category, then it's something that could be reflected on with this perspective in mind. And now you have to think about it too. This concept of, as Ellen White put it, walking on like Satan's ground, putting yourself in enemy territory. I've talked about regret and even just some things happening in general as maybe a natural and unexpected reaction to something that happens. Sure. But what if, as somebody who is a believer, someone who says that you have a certain set of values, someone who says that you want to engage or you profess that you're trying to engage with life in a particular kind of way, what happens when you intentionally put yourself at odds with the thing that you claim to be? What happens? What happens? That seems like an even more direct correlation to the potential of setting yourself up for failure. You go back to the story, we talked about not really knowing the context, but the people out there in that land were the type of people that they were. For whatever motivated Dinah to go, did she think about what those people might do if they found her out there? I don't know. I'm not trying to put the blame on her at all. What happened in the story happened. But if she knew that these were potentially bad people and dangerous, like, does that change her decision? And again, making it practical. If we think about the situations and the places that we put ourselves in, the things that we do, the things that we engage in, the things that we say when no one's around, the things that we do when no one's around, are we setting ourselves up to be on enemy territory to where we could be taken out? In a sense, what's the butterfly effect of what we might be setting ourselves up for? I don't have the answer to the story. Like I said, I struggle with it, and that's why I wanted to talk about it, because I think there's multiple directions you could go on this thing. But I do know that for me personally, it makes me think twice about what I choose to do and who I'm claiming to be. And if there's a good territory and a good place I'm trying to be in, are there things that I'm doing, are there things that I'm saying that's putting me on enemy territory and setting myself up for a fall? And I think that's worth considering for all of us. So, kind of a dark story, dark thoughts and dark ramifications on such a bright and beautiful day. My bad. But if anything, I hope that you get from this. We hear that word regret thrown out all the time, but I hope that you live in a way that you have as little regret as possible. I hope when pressure situations come your way and you're forced to make a decision, that you can make a good decision that's going to set you up better in the future rather than one that can set you back. And on a level of principle, I think that's a good thing. It's a good thing to think about, a good thing to be aware of. And in this case, lives can be saved, lives can be impacted for the positive if we do our part to stay in good territory and avoid enemy territory. So yeah, anyways, I'm gonna keep enjoying this out here because it's vibes on vibes. And until next time, we out here and we out. Peace.